What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Duran Duran. And we're back with the final tune on their 2023 album, Danse Macabre. Once again, shout out to all the Duranis still here, and I appreciate the patience. And I've also started to go through some of the earliest music videos. So big ups to all the people who've come to check out those. And also big thanks to great friend of the channel, Izzy World, who a while back, a few months ago, sent me an interview with Nick Rhodes about this album. And I remember very clearly he was saying it was one of 3 new tunes written for the album, and ultimately each one would have one of the guitarists in the history of Duran, one for Andy, one for Warren, one for Dom, and this is the one with Dom. And I do also remember that the second question about the song, Nick talks about how it reminded him of the tune Missing by Arcadia, and he talks about how much he enjoyed making that record, and I believe the producer Alex Sadkin, and he enjoyed working with him. Also, I remember him joking that Simon thought the project would be sort of a holiday, but then they spent over a year making it and really like hyper tweaking the sound and the atmosphere. But he mentions the atmospherics in the Arcadia tune. I fully agree, and ultimately that album is absolutely a special entry in the Duran / Duran adjacent catalog. So when I read that description, I was already intrigued by the tune. The phrase itself is interesting in that, normally and in most religious thinking, especially, the traditions that have clear and concrete notions of afterlife and the relevance and whatever the theology is, confessions in the afterlife feels like, wait, you're already in one place or another, so, to give a confession feels like, it would be an interesting juxtaposition of something that is normally done when people are alive, perhaps, and then speaking directly about the afterlife. But again, the idea of like that in-between, like, mediums, or media, I suppose I should say. I guess he pluralized it mediums. But the idea of like living humans interacting with spirits and souls, which is the whole idea of the seance and the Danse Macabre. I think the title itself speaks to that, like, there's some blending of things down here and then things in the ethereal. So I do enjoy the interesting tension of the title in that regard, whatever the song may be about. And yeah, I'm trying to remember if I'm leaving out any part of that interview, because it is, let's see really quickly if I can open it. Okay, so here is what Nick says directly. It's another one we did with Ben, Mr. Hudson. We were going for 2 songs. The first song was Danse Macabre. We went up-tempo. We got that and then said, let's go for a more moody, darker, slightly Halloween-themed song. Simon had the title and an idea. When he's got a title and an idea, it's always a good place to start. I started playing the chords with an organ-type sound. There was something quite ethereal about it, and Simon found his verse melody quickly. Then we figured out the song in the studio in a day, in a few hours really. I wanted it to sound in the same vein as the Arcadia song Missing. There's something about that song. I always loved the atmospherics. I remember being in the studio, I was in the control room, and everyone else was playing live in the studio. Producer Alex Sadkin slowly brought up the faders so that we could hear the guitar and the percussion, the bass, and I was playing the arpeggio part. It sounded so mystical and strange, unlike anything I had ever heard before. That Arcadia album is one of my favorite things we ever did. It took the longest, over a year, to make because we were so obsessed with the detail and the sound. For me, Alex was the greatest producer in the world at the time. I'm glad it exists and that we made the record, or that record. Simon thought he was going on holiday, and then brackets, laughing. So yeah, there you go. So ultimately, I do enjoy the prospect of a song that is supposedly, going to have a bit of an atmosphere or sound similar to an Arcadia tune. I should point out also that now that the album is done, I make sure I haven't missed any important details in the little liner notes. This will go up on the music wall somewhere, which has really expanded. Over on Patreon, there's a couple of videos showing it. Nevertheless, let's get to it. This is Duran Duran. The tune is Confessions in the Afterlife, and it's the final track on their 2023 album, Danse Macabre.
These are words falling from fire, ashes on the river tide. to love, there will be a pathway, and I will see you on the other side. Stories like the evening stars are showing up in that light. Yeah, it's alright, whatever fills your cup. Confession. The afterlife.
Come on, Simon. Simon, get on this one.
Heathen eyes painted on iron. See everything you leave behind. Once beholden, always forgotten. Upon this blameless sea of never mind. Secrets woven, but nobody, you be sure. With malice grown, when nothing really matters anymore. Confession. The afterlife. Confession.
The lush texture of
The
that space guitar. I like it, including the sonics at the end of the record. Yeah, a really sweet tune, definitely atmospheric, definitely some rich texture like most of the Arcadia album. Ultimately, the guitar work really did stand out. It had this ethereal, spacey quality to it, which seems to fit right in with what they were going for. And Simon's vocals definitely stood out, really sounded melodically rich on that one, and ultimately it felt like there were a couple different, or maybe even a few different vocal idioms. Like, you know, he had his normal liquid metallic sort of you know, bending journey through the melody, but he also had a couple moments where it was like a bit of a bluesy sound. There was a bit of a gospel feel to some of the vocals. even maybe like a R&B type sound. So it felt like he was not only very much in his element in the like classic Simon Le Bon, you know, characteristic telltale vocals, but also like perhaps, you know, on different sides of the vocal spectrum that he can do. So ultimately, a really good performance from him. And yeah, definitely the atmospherics, you know, Nick definitely recreating the environment in which the album that they were referencing with this very much embodied. So top tune, one where I'm not quite sure, but I definitely, you know, I heard the title phrase and I heard the, no, what was it? See, this is what happens. Again, the sonics. Whatever I talk about first, I'm more likely to remember in greater detail. Because whenever I get to end talking about the lyrics and I haven't mentioned the sonics, there may be some part that I don't recall, and certainly vice versa. If I do the sonics first, it's like, oh wait, what was that one line? There was another line that stood out. In the moment, I'm not remembering it, of course. If I can recall by the time I post it, I'm sure that by the time I post it, people will comment, you know, give me insight. But if I can remember before then, I'll put it in the description in perhaps, you know, what I was going to say about it. But yeah, cool album, absolutely enjoy it. I know people were saying, you know, it's kind of a cover album, not so much new material, but I like a sort of hybrid album like that, you know, redoing some things, blending some things you've done with maybe some other things, but genuinely creating some new tracks, and the idea of like kind of bringing back a lot of people who've been involved in the Duran journey over time, bringing back Andy and having Warren on a track, having Dom on a track, Mr. Hudson, you know, producer who worked with them on earlier material. I just like the idea that this album is kind of, you know, it celebrates Duran musically, but also in terms of what that has been, like, you know, the people involved. So yeah, I tip my cap to that sentiment or that approach, which very much comes across in just, you know, the people involved, and the interview again with Nick and the way he talks about that. So once again, shout out to Izzy World for sharing that. Definitely insightful as we've gone through it. Again, I will continue to go through some of the Duran videos. There's still live stuff. Shout out to Adam. I know there's like live stuff. I still haven't gone through the rest of the, what was it? Pleasure Island, I believe, the Pleasure Island performance. I think there's a few more tunes on there. So yeah, more Duran to come. Again, I do appreciate the patience. Let me know what you think of this, and also expect more music video reactions as we continue through the early phase of that part of the journey. So cheers, I will see you next time. Peace.